So Linux is a widely used operating system, used everywhere. A lot of servers, a lot of computers on the supercomputers, even mobile phones, they run Linux. You might find it in your printer, every electronic device. Linux is everywhere. And it's often used as like a server system. So a lot of internet service computers giving you websites like YouTube, they run Linux behind the scenes. Now with Linux, you can control Linux using the command line, using the terminal. Now there's all kinds of commands. And in this course, I will teach you a lot of these commands step by step so you can see how this works. So for example, here in this lab, the first question is, where are you on the system? And it's a command line interface. So how this works is you type a command, you press enter, and you get feedback. It's like old style computing. So to find out where we are, we type the command pwd and press enter. And it's short for print current working directory. So print working directory, pwd. And it will tell us the current directory here is the slash directory. So that is a directory that's just the start of the system. And every folder, every file is then inside of that. Now, we want to know which files and folders are in here. So we can type the command ls, short for list, press enter, and it will then tell you the files and folders. So we have a bunch of folders here. And now it asks us, please change the directory, go back to the home folder. You'll see we have a home folder here. And what we can do is we type cd, change directory, followed by a name, home, and we'll change the folder into the folder home. I press enter, you'll see we solved it. Now, let's go to the next exercise. Now, remember, some of these commands, they will repeat just for clarity. So to find out what is in the current directory, we can type ls, and it will tell us what files and folders are there. So that's similar to if you open the Explorer or Finder, depending on which system you use, and you see all the files and folder at once. So with ls, you have the same thing, short for list. It lists everything that is in the folder or everything in the directory. Now they want us to make a new folder called test. We can do that by typing the command mkdir, short for make directory, followed by the name test, and press enter. And you'll see it made directory test. And now to navigate into it, we use the command we've seen before, change directory, cd. We type cd space test. We want to go into the folder, press enter, and we are inside the folder. And now to confirm that we are in that folder, we type the command pwd, print the working directory. And if I press enter, you'll see we are in that directory. So you'll see those Linux commands, you can repeat them. Sometimes you use this command, sometimes you use that command. It depends on the situation. So to list all files in this folder, we can do ls. And here we have two files, two txt files. And we can read files on the command line. So you might not expect that, but on Linux systems, you can do a lot of things with text because it's a text interface here. Now, of course, when you use Linux on a desktop, you have a desktop computer with your browser, your Chrome or Firefox or whatever it is you're using with your graphical programs. But Linux always has this command line interface. So it doesn't matter if it's a phone, if it is a server, if it is a desktop computer, you can always use this command line interface to interact with the Linux system. And you can even do so remotely, right? So you can log into a computer on the other side of the world, type these commands and be remotely controlling that computer. So here they ask us, we have two text files, and they ask us read the contents of that info.txt, of that file. So to do that, we type the commands cat, C-A-T, with one T, and followed by file name. So that reads the file. If I press enter, you'll see we see the contents of the file. And we can do the same thing if we read the file contents of tips.txt. We simply type cat tips.txt, and it shows the output. Now let's go to the next exercise. So again, it wants us to list the current directory. Now keep in mind it says here list, but they want to know the current directory. So that's print the working directory. That's not the ls, or in this case, they might want the ls. There we go. And they want us to create a new folder project. We can do that by typing mkdir projects and press enter. That makes the project. Now we can verify that if we type ls, you'll see the project folder has been made. And we can enter it using the command cd project. We're now in the project folder. And to confirm, we type pwd, and yes, we are indeed in the project folder. Now, how do we know if the folder is empty? So we simply type ls. If it doesn't return any files or folders, it's empty. So let's see, nothing there. So a lot of Linux is just simply typing various commands. And the key is like memorizing or getting the heck of these commands, which at first it can seem very intimidating. But once you practice step by step, these commands will become more natural. And you can use these commands on any Linux system. So how do you create a new file, notes.txt? Well, you touch it, type touch, followed by the file name, notes.txt. So that creates the file notes.txt. We can verify it exists with the command ls. So we see a bunch of files and folders, and also that notes.txt. We can read this file. Now, it's gonna be empty, but we can read it. So we type cut notes.txt. We can create another text file, reports.txt. So we do the same thing. We use the touch command. So touch reports.txt. And we can verify this exists. If we do ls, we have the notes.txt and also the report.txt. So both of them we made with the touch command. And to read this report.txt, we type cut reports.txt. And that is an empty file. You just touch creates an empty file on Linux. Okay, let's create a new folder. You might remember we use the touch command. When we touch something, we create an empty file. So now it should be created. We can confirm. We list the files and folders. We have the temp.txt here that has been created with the touch command. Now we need to remove it. So far we haven't removed anything. Now this is all virtual, so you cannot break anything. If we type the rm temp.txt command, it will remove that file. Let's see. Should be gone now, and we can confirm it. If we type ls, it's no longer there. So with the rm command, short for remove, it is now accessible. So in Linux, a lot of these commands get shortened. Remove becomes rm, and you'll see this kind of things a lot. Let's say we create this new folder alt, and then they want us to create a folder trash. So we created two folders. See here, we have the folder alt and trash. We can remove the folder with command rmdir. So if we remove a file, we use rm. If we remove a folder or a directory, we use rmdir. We type rmdir alt, and they want us to delete the other file with rm-r. So that removes the files inside the folder and the folder itself. So we do that with the trash. Then we can confirm it, and done. Now, besides these commands, these commands sometimes have parameters. So if we list something normally, we just type ls, but sometimes we want some more details. We want to know, is this file readable, writable, who owns this file, and such kind of things. And depending on the command, sometimes you want to get extra information. And for that, you can use parameters or flags. So if I do ls, to add a parameter, we can do, for example, -l, that is a parameter of the command list or ls. And it will provide you some additional information like the date, the time of creation, and so on. Now, on Linux, there are also hidden files. Those are not listed by default. And to list those files, you type the ls command with the flag -a that shows all the files, so including the hidden files. You'll see, in this case, there's no extra hidden file. And these can be combined as well. So if we type ls-al or la, those will be combined. So it has extra parameters. Now, we can read files and folders. So if I check the ls commands, you see we can read various files. For example, this info.txt. Let's say cut info.txt to read the contents of the file. Now, we can do this with any file. So for example, if we do it with this tips.txt, you type cut tips.txt, and there seems to be another file. So inside the folder welcome, there's a file intro.txt. We can read that as well. We can type cut welcome/intro.txt, and it tells you the information inside that one. Now, sometimes files can get very large, right? So in the files we used, they were quite short. You could read them on a single line. But some text files, they might be a gigabyte, a petabyte, or however large files you can imagine. So Linux has some tools to only read, for example, the beginning of the file or the end of the file. So if we take a look at the files we have on this system, so we have a bunch of files. And we can check the first lines of the file using the command head, and then followed by the file name. So that reads only the first few lines of this. Now, with the, you'll see a bunch of lines here, and this works on any file. So for example, if we had some other file here, notes.txt, we could list the files, the top lines of that file as well. And this works, of course, it doesn't matter if it's in a subdirectory. So if you do welcome/intro.txt, it reads that as well. So with the head command, it only reads the first top lines of a file. That can be very useful if the files are very large. And we can also read the ends of the file. So if you have a large file, sometimes you just want to look at the end of the file. You want to see the last lines. And as you might imagine, that is the tail. So tail followed by the file name. And then it gets the last lines of the file. So the same for notes.txt, and the same idea if it is some file inside it. Now in this case, these files are super small, so you won't really see that much difference. But if they are large files, it just reads the top or the bottom of the file, and it doesn't read an entire gigabyte or several terabyte or petabyte. So it becomes much easier to read. Now, with a file, we can list files and folders. We can also output something into the screen. There's a command in Linux called echo. And if you use this echo command, it will output whatever you feed into it. For example, echo hello world, and it will echo that. It will give an echo. It will return the same data back to you. So in this case, it returns hello world. Or if we do any other sentence, like Linux is fun, it returns that to the screen. We can also do this with numbers, so it doesn't have to be just text. We can do, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll see it returns that to the screen. So echo, you can output something to the screen, which can be very useful if you make scripts later on where you automate Linux using little scripts. And then with this echo command, you can give feedback to the user who run the script. Now we can again list the files and folders, and we can get information about the file, like how many characters are in that file. We have this poem.txt, and we can use the command word count, or WC, and followed by the name of the file. You see a lot of these things on Linux, they work with files because you have a command line interface, is text. It doesn't display images or videos here. And that's why there's a lot of these text files that historically you did a lot of things with text. That's why you have a lot of text commands. Now, we have a folder notes here. If we enter that folder, you'll see we have our file todo.txt. So we can move back. We'll see now we are in the folder home user notes. If we do cd space ... it moves up a directory. Now we're in home user. And we can count the files or the characters in that todo.txt. So we can say wc notes/todo.txt. And it will tell you how many characters are in there. This works with any file. So for example, if we do it with another file, just folder story, and then there's the file long.txt. And in this case, we typed cut with the wrong command, so we get the contents. Cut is for reading the file. We type wc for the word count, and then we type the file name. It tells us how many characters, how many lines are in the file. Now, we can also inspect files. So in this case, we have the file poem.txt, and we might want to get more information about it. We can use the command stat with the name txt. As you might imagine, stat is short for statistics, and it will give you some statistics. Now, this you can do with any file. So we have another file todo.txt in notes. We can do stat with notes/todo.txt. It will tell you that information, and it doesn't matter how long that file is. So if we would use that with the folder, with the file long.txt, that's the same thing. So with the stat commands, you can quit some quick file system statistics. It's not used that often, to be honest. So there's a lot of more things you can do. We can create empty files. So say notes.txt, we create that file. We can confirm the file is there, notes.txt. we can create one to-do.txt, and we can put it inside projects. So we might not have done that before. We can touch projects and then to-do.txt. Now the file is created directly in the projects folder. So if I do ls, you'll see the file is not there. But if I go into projects and then ls, you'll see to-do.txt is there. Now, if we do the ls commands, we can also confirm it directly. We can do ls projects, and we see the to-do.txt file. Now, you can also do all kinds of file operations on Linux. So you can move files around, you can copy files, move them, rename them, make folders, remove folders, and so on. So here, if I type ls, you'll see we have a file reports.txt. Let's say we want to copy this file into copy.txt. We can type the command cp, short for copy, report.txt. So that's the old file name, and then we copy it to a new file name that doesn't exist yet. We'll call it copy.txt. Then we can list the files and folders again. You'll see we have this copy.txt, and we can copy this, for example, in the documents folder, in the docs folder. You can say cp, copy.txt, and then copy it into the docs folder. And of course, we can copy it like this. So we copied the wrong file. They want us to copy reports.txt. You can say cp reports.txt, and we copy it into the docs folder. And we can verify this exists ls/docs or ls, what did we call it? There's no reports.txt in there. Let's say we copy it again, and we copy it to docs/report.txt, and then we list that folder, and report.txt is in there. So with Linux, you can type all kinds of commands and completely control any Linux computer just with the terminal. It doesn't matter what graphical interface they use. It doesn't matter if you're on the other side of the world. You can, with the command line, control a Linux computer. So here we have another lab. And in this lab, they want us to move and rename files. So if I take a look at the files and folders, we have draft.txt. They want us to remove draft.txt to final.txt. We can do that by typing mv. So you might not expect, but renaming is actually moving it. mv draft.txt, and then we change it to final.txt. So that renames the file. If I list the files and folders, you'll see final.txt here. Now, so both rename and moving is the same command as mv. So to move it, we type mv final.txt, and we move it into the archive folder. So we want to have it inside it. And then if I list the archive folder, it should be inside there because we moved it. Then when you have a bunch of files, you can remove them. So we have this file alt.txt, we can remove it with the rm command. So we type rm alt.txt. We can list the files again. So alt.txt is gone. Now inside this folder trash, there's also a file called node.txt. So if I take a look, ls trash, we have this node.txt, and we can remove that as well. We can do rm trash/nodes.txt, and it is now, or it should now be gone. If I list the files and folders, that node.txt is no longer in there. If I do ls trash, it's empty. We removed that file from it. Now, we can also create and remove directories or folders in your Linux system from the command line. If I list the files and folders, we have this nodes.txt, and maybe we want to have a new directory. So we type mkdir testdir. That creates the new directory. Now, we can confirm that. We have this test directory, and we can remove that. So we type rmdir testdir. Then if we list again, the directory is gone. The folder is gone.